museum, the painters are celebrated. So while in India we have museums dedicated to a lot of artists and painters and sculptors, but we have very little museums which actually talk of literary personalities. But if you ever go to Prayagraj, because this 2025, the new year that we are going to welcome, is going to start with the Mahakumbh, and this is the Mahakumbh which happens once in 144 years. So if any of you is planning to go, in fact, you must actually go, and if you do go, you must visit the Prayagraj museum, which is right next to the Fafanuma bridge, which is where you go to access the Mahakumbh. You will find there is an entire dedicated gallery to all the authors, and the Allahabad University is known for churning out huge number of authors of literary repute, and the Allahabad Museum has an entire corner where you will see their pens, you will see their clothes, you will see their writings, the poetry books written in their own handwriting. So it is very nice because you can actually see the thoughts of those generations of the people who actually wrote. We must celebrate these people. In Jaipur, if you recall, in the walled city of Jaipur, they have now started putting plaques because houses will definitely change hands. The landlords will change into renters, the tenants will take over. But this whole concept of, a Shakespeare's house, a William Wordsworth's house, while people are living, the contemporary generation is living, what the UK government has done, they have put up a plaque and said that once upon a time, there was this person who occupied, today this one is the habitant. So I think that is something that the municipalities should look at. We should be able to preserve the histories of people, important people, because people will then be able to inspire others. A one man doing something great in the community actually changes the whole concept of how the community starts looking at themselves. Literature anyways is the mirror of society. So I think we need to treat our authors with a little more sensitivity and respect and preserve everything. Government of India is doing some good amount of work in digitizing the works of authors. The National Archive of India, which is based in New Delhi, is actually talking to the heirs of poets and important writers and freedom fighters that if they're sitting over works of people, unpublished works of people or works in their own handwriting which they don't know how to preserve, then the National Archives of India is very happy for a donation. They will give you, return the original to you, but digitize it so that this can then remain preserved and conserved for the posterity. So all of us can read the works which are today lying with, say, their own household and they don't know how to do it. Because, when a person becomes important, he then doesn't belong only to his family. He then belongs to the entire country. He becomes the natural heritage of the country, and I think we all have a right to then peep into his mind and into his heart and to see what he's written, what that could not get published, of course.
That's a very important, valuable work that is being undertaken. I can think of other examples also closer home. There's Roerich Museum in Nagar, but as you pointed out, it's an artist's home. Nicholas Roerich lived and painted Himalayas all his life there, but it's again very beautifully preserved. There are, however, there are some that haven't been able to, that we've not been able to tap into their full potential, such as Galit Ki Haveli in Delhi. While it has, some work has happened there, but there's so much more that can be done there in terms of live performances. Then I can also think of Bihari Ji's temple in Amer, and this is interesting because I came across a few couplets by Bihari Ji translated into English. He of course wrote originally in Brij Bhasha, and there's Murthy Classical Library that has been started by Narayan Murthy in collaboration with the Harvard University, and they're translating original works from vernacular languages to English. And that's how I reintroduced myself to Bihari Ji. And I went and I looked up the temple because I found out that he spent some years in Jaipur. And it's lying in shambles in a nondescript sort of existence. And really, this is an area where I feel there's so much that we can do, and we are spoiled for choice in India as far as this is concerned. But literary tourism is a relatively new genre. In the larger scheme of things, because there are so many other genres in tourism, where do you place it in terms of possibilities?
So I think it's growing because today every tier 1, tier 2 city is growing and having their own literature festival. Look at Ajmer has a literary festival, Koshali has a literary festival today, NPT is planning to go to Indore and Gorakhpur and Raipur, they have done an edition. Because the human being's first instinct is to be able to, come out with their own cultural expression. So one of the first things man did was probably to be able to draw. You have the Bhim-Betka caves where man wanted to express himself, so he started drawing. Then he started writing, and the scripts, of course, still remain undeciphered in some parts of the world, including in ours. But the point is, man wants to express himself. And every city has authors, every city has readers, and I think the city's profile also grows because when the city reads, when the mother reads in the home and the city reads, then there is the whole caliber of the city. I think the city itself changes because there's you will find the change in the city. You just look at the small tier 1, tier 2 and tier 3 cities. They are now becoming alternate destinations because people are tired of seeing the same golden triangle. They're tired, they want to see something new. So novelty is forcing people to come up with different cultural expressions. Also, the age that we live in is an age of instant gratification. If you look at how we are surrounded by this ambient noise of the social media. We are perpetually on the screens. We are connected and yet we are very isolated. So I think literature then will have the nice power. See, all of us sitting here today, it feels so nice. None of us are looking at the screens right now. We are doing a conversation. Once we finish this conversation, we'll also be doing a proper dialogue where you'll ask us questions. So the innate curiosity. See, they say that the cure to boredom is curiosity, but there is no cure to curiosity. And I think this innate wonderment and curiosity, the observation, is is what started science, is also what started making authors out of people. Because you observe, then you feel, then you get stimulated, then you want to write. So provocation and stimuli makes a person into an author or into any kind of a cultural expressionist. And I think it's very important that we instill this art of reading and habit into the people because literature is the essence. How will you capture or how will you rather archive this age? How do you want your children to remember this age? When you want to remember this age, you will go back and read what contemporary people of that age wrote about the society, wrote about economics, wrote about history. So it's very important to document time. And I think authors, independently, without any bias, observe society and document that time. So I think it is very important. But this is not the only facet in tourism. You also have amusement tourism. You have huge number of museums here. You have a cricket museum in Pune, which is very famous. A lot of people go there. So sports people can inspire you. Film personalities can inspire you. Film making coming out of books. It's so easy. The transition. A lot of people have actually, the Harry Potter series got famous because of the Harry Potter movies. Then people went and started reading the books. So it can be a trigger. In fact, these two also complement each other very well. Like a Devdas has been made 3 times. But the original source is that one book which was written. It has been interpreted in every time and age by different characters, protagonists in its own manner. It moved from a black and white version of a Devdas to a colored age to mimic the contemporary times. But the basis of that was one book. One book is giving rise to so many different cultural interpretations and expressions across time. So what literature can do, I think, inspiring different genres of, and the metaverse. Today, people are absorbing literature in different ways, in a very immersive, in a AR, VR, MR kind of a manner. So I think the base, you need a script to be able to write a movie. You need a script to be able to do a conversation. You need a script to be able to anchor. That script is the cultural expression. That script is literature.
Right. What are some of the biggest challenges that we face in letting literary tourism reach its sort of full potential in India? And I ask you this especially because you were at the forefront in organizing the Festival of Libraries. which was also sort of a step in this direction. So your learning and your takeaways from that.
I think the concept of, I have grown up on public libraries, so I think we need to reimagine and restate the whole concept of the public library, because today the ease of being able to read on your screen is so much that people are not going to the public libraries. They are reading rooms today, and all our reading, because of the age that we live in, has become very competitive. So if you look at the public libraries today, and I've worked in the library space, you will see that they have become reading rooms for people who are undertaking different kinds of competitions. So literary festivals have come about as a result of the fact that the public library space has been vacated, not for readers. All our revolutionary ideas at some point in time, if you go back, came because of reading. Newton was reading under a tree when the apple fell on his head, and the apple made him think about gravity. So from reading, going out into the open, that has stopped. I think we must resurrect this entire culture of reading. It can be through the public libraries. The government is doing a lot. The NVT is doing a lot by getting these fairs, the book fairs, to the various parts of the country. Earlier we only had one book fair, the World Book Fair. But today the world is traveling. Today you can read authors sitting in the comfort of your room from different parts of the world. I think that did not exist. So if technology has facilitated this, we must ensure that we must also read about India, we must also read about the global world, and we must hold conversations like this to understand where we are going. Because literature is not just a measure of the time of today, but it is also very futuristic. Let me give you one example. What has happened that Netherlands has undertaken a huge experiment called the Library of the Future. They got this lady who has written this very famous book. I'm forgetting, if I remember I'll tell you. She has written this book which also won the Nobel Prize, and the Netherlands government asked her to write a book which will remain hidden for about 100 years. And when we reach the 22nd century, that book will be open to readers. So they have built a curiosity. She's handed over the book. Margaret Atwood is the lady who's written that book. The first book which will be opened and read for the first time. There are no copies. There is just one copy of the book. It is to raise a whole discussion about the future of the libraries, because the rate at which the public libraries are becoming defunct, there is a question that the contemporary global world is asking whether we will have libraries in the future. And every year they are approaching one new author who's world famous, and they are asking that author to write a book for the audience of the 22nd century based on your understanding of the 21st century. So that experiment people are taking so that they can, they can arouse curiosity about the importance of libraries in times to come, because everybody who has lived in an age and knows about the age will look forward to reading a book which will only be available in that library. So I think if the Netherlands government gets it right, then they are actually sowing seeds for cultural tourism, or literary tourism as we know it, for the 22nd century in Netherlands. Because you will only have one copy written by an author who will not be available anymore to be able to write another book, and everybody will flock, because the next age after artificial intelligence that we will usher in will be the age of imagination. Why? Because today, if India has had the ability to uplift 250 million people from multi-dimensional poverty, people will have enough and more disposable income. Imagine India becoming a 25 trillion economy in 2047. We will have so much money. And because we will not have the pressure to earn money, we will have a lot of free time. So the age that we are ushering in is an age where, again, like the 17th, 18th century in Europe, the age of enlightenment, people will be writing, people will be publishing, people will be filming, and what all sorts of things will be happening, because people will not be focused so much on doing a 9-to-5 job. Even as we speak today, we are part of the gig economy, and we are ushering in almost by 2047, you will have a 10 trillion culture creative economy ready, which will be based on all the young people. In fact, we are 20 days away from ushering in what is called the next generation of people, which will be the beta generation. You know, everybody born from 1983 to 1986 is the millennials, and India today has 46% of millennials, which is people just 2 years less than 40 years. And we are ready to welcome the next generation. So by the time you are in early 2025, you'll be welcoming the beta generation. I'm Gen Z, Gen X. So I will be handing over the reins of this country to the beta and maybe to the next gamma generation. And those people will actually be traveling to Netherlands to read that book that Margaret Atwood has written in the 21st century, in the 22nd century. So I'm sure literary tourism will have huge, huge impact, and people are actually investing into it. See, all of you who've come here today have come on the basis of this entire power of literature. To read, to hear, to answer, to ask questions, because of curiosity. So innate curiosity has got you here, and I think if we can channelize it right, then we can use India's diversity, linguistic and otherwise, to be able to open the floodgates for doing many more global literary events in the country.
It's quite fascinating, and what I'm thinking is that it's a little unfortunate that many people won't actually be able to read Margaret Atwood's book. But that brings us to another important area, and which is how can young people's interest in reading be kindled, rekindled in this day and age where everyone is consuming content on digital devices, and also simultaneously, how important is it to allow literature to be accessed on platforms where young people already are present?
So I think, it doesn't matter on what platform you read. Some people like to hold the book and like the smell of the book, and like me want to underline important things, hashtag and do an asterisk, so that I can go back to those important sentences in the book, because the language of the book also really attracts me apart from the thought and the story of the book. So the platform, technology is a platform, it's here to facilitate. So today, because our lives have also got busy, if we cannot congregate here, we can't do this 365 days, but we like to read 365 days. So I'm okay with people reading on Kindle, on whatever device you have, whatever platform you have, till such time you are reading. It also is very important because, see, we live also in an age where we have WhatsApp universities. So people are actually not reading. They are only reading coursework, and life is so competitive that the younger generation is only reading what is important to be able to get to the next step in life, which I think confines our capabilities as a human being. The idea of being in this world and in this life is to explore ourselves. And if you go back, and I'm sorry I have to anchor this, because the India that we know of as today has survived only because of the fact that we laid so much of emphasis. We had these 4 ashrams. One of the first ashram, the Brahmacharya ashram, where the boys actually and the girls actually went to the Gurukul, trained under the gurus and learnt about themselves. So while it's important to read, it's also important to read yourself, because this is our journey in life, and in this journey we also need to know who we are. And by exposing ourselves into the world, either it is through literature or through conversations or through writings or through whatever means of cultural expression, it could be painting, it could be filming, it could be anything, you are finding who you are. The moment you expose yourselves in public as an author, because it is also a very courageous step, because you don't know how the reaction of the audience will be to your book, you learn a lot, because it is this give and take on which our tradition is based on. This give and take. The universe is based on the give and take. So I think we must really, really read. I'm agnostic to how you read. I'm also agnostic to to how much time you spend reading. But I would suggest that you please read and also do debates and discussions, not just as as a measure, as a token measure, but make it a habit. And then you will see the quality of your life improves, the quality of how you think improves, the quality of your discussions improve. And I can also tell you on a side that your own family lives will improve. Because reading is a very patient act. It's a very lonely act, both reading and writing, you and the book. And it's also a great escape, no? Because you can escape and find all your dreams through other people, your characters, you can find your characters, you can find your favorite stories in who you are. So I think reading for me has been a very, very warm pillow. It is an escape at times, it is at times very, very inspiring because it teaches you so much. A book can be a weapon in a way, actually, if you look at it. It can cater to all the different navrasas of your own mood. If you are angry, it can calm you down. If you're too lost in your comfort zone, it can inspire you to do something great. So get hold of a book. I'm told there are a couple of nice publishers here and great books here. So use this opportunity today to immerse yourselves.
We were very pleasantly surprised when we came in to see how people were taking bagfuls of books here in Pune. But you may have already answered that in bits and pieces, but I want to come back to cultural diplomacy and literary tourism and ask you how important a tool in achieving cultural diplomacy objectives do you see literary tourism as?
So literary tourism is an important tool for any country because it also tells you where your country stands. A country that does not read, where people do not read, how do you actually compete in a nice collaborative manner with countries who read? You can't. So it becomes an instrument of being able to compare your country in a nice way, in not a very competitive way. Because how do you explain your country to the other? How do you talk about the richness of your civilization if you're not able to articulate? Literary tourism actually allows you to articulate. And how do you tell the track to, which is the common people from one country to the other? The authors can do that beautifully, without the governments coming into the picture, the world view of the world, what is happening in India, in different domains. There's so many subjects that we have, sociology, anthropology, economics, so much that can be said about the country by different people who are articulating. That is how the world consumes you. How do you think that the world understands what India is? How do you think we understand different things? We understand everything because words become the bridge. They are the conduit of understanding. It's not just information, but at times whatever is written about your country, whatever you read about other countries, other people, other cultures, it becomes a bridge of connect. It is striking connections because something that I do here is also being done in another country in another way, brings us closer to those people. So it is connecting people to people. Once people to people get connected on thoughts, on the basis of thoughts and ideas and cultural expressions, then I think the countries also grow closer. So the idea of tourism, apart from being a transformational instrument of employment generation, of adding to the GDP, is also of getting cultures and people together. Creating a sense of harmony, creating a sense of oneness, creating a sense of the fact that the whole idea of globalization, that we may be different worlds, we may have different cultures, but at the base of it all, we are all human beings with similar needs, with similar desires, with similar wants. And I think that articulation brings us closer to people. When you read a story, you actually step into that shoe. When you enact a play, when you enact a character in a script, you actually start feeling and understanding. So I think literature allows you to understand the other and then collapse the whole notion of the fact that there is another, and which is what brings people together and closer. And I think it is very important for striking peace in the world. Peace comes from understanding. The another name of love is understanding, empathy, exactly. So I think reading allows you to do that, to become better human beings, to become better families, to become better cultures, better societies, and more understanding of each other. Because if we are more understanding of each other, all the violence and the crime and the thought processes that we have towards the other will calm down. So I think it is very essential. Amartya Sen in one of his books called Justice wrote something very nice about charity, and I must say this because it is the demand of the age. He said that, doing philanthropy is no charity. So never take pride in the fact that if you are doing something for somebody, whether in cash or kind, you are doing anything for the other. In fact, you are doing it for yourselves. And then he explains why. He says when a worker in your house, when the worker, the child of the worker who works in your house, your maid son or daughter, sees that you have 5 cars, that you have so much luxury, and he doesn't have anything, what kind of sentiment will it evoke in him? This whole sense of redistributive justice. And he said, so it's always better that you give him everything that he deserves so that he doesn't eye the things that you have. And that is the basis of establishing peace in the country. And when you read such things, you understand that there is no other, and that equality, equity, social inclusion become very, very important for society, not as a statement to be made, but also from a very, very selfish angle of ensuring that whatever we have will remain with us. To be able to have peace in your own family, you must ensure that there is peace everywhere. If there is fire burning in the neighborhood and you are watching, then tomorrow that same fire will burn you also.
It reminds me of that film, unfortunately I'm forgetting the name, it was a Korean film based on a similar theme. Maybe someone from the audience will know, but in any case, yeah. So, Kumbh is around the corner, and it's a hugely well-attended event for people within the country as well as international travel tourists who come and attend Kumbh. How do you think the Kumbh can be leveraged to achieve India's cultural diplomacy goals?
Also, you know, Kumbh is the only festival in the country, if I might say, which follows the celestial calendar. You know, it's the only event where we don't have to send any Agra party. When you do a wedding in the family, when you do a literature festival like this, you have to announce the date. And you have to say, okay, come here on the 22nd at Fergusson College, Pune, and you will get to see of this literature festival. But Kumbh is the only event in the world, only I'm saying, which has a very, very ancient connect. It is one of the most continuous ancient event which is happening continuously ever since it started right from the times of the Samudra Manthan. And you know, there is no parallel to this. And why I say this? Because when the celestial sky, which is astronomy, which is actually astrology actually gave birth to astronomy. If you read the Surya Siddhant, a copy of which is also in the Asiatic Society in Kolkata, you will realize that when Jupiter, which is the planet Guru, enters Aquarius, which is a zodiac sign, a nakshatra, that is when the Kumbh starts. And all you have to do is look at the sky. And you know, Einstein, who was a great scientist, he said something very important about science. He said that science is based on observation. You first observe and then you understand. This is what our ancient people have been doing all along. You see the sky. It is also said that the North Star, which was shining, led the 3 Magi's, because we are in the Christmas season, also led the 3 Magi's to the birthplace of Jesus. They guided. Stars have been guiding us all along. And Kumbh is important for this. If people would go to a Tomatina festival based on what was the film? Then I think you must, you know, how can you not go to a Kumbh and experience what happens? No government invites you for the Kumbh. People who are not even educated, for that matter, you have to go. I went in 2019, stayed there for 3 days, and I realized that, and I asked a lot of people, no government organizes this, puts the scaffolds for everything, sets up the tent, but it doesn't give you an Agra party. It doesn't send you chawal. People on their own know today, and I think that is the greatest legacy of our civilizational culture, that we have been celebrating this event, and this event was also celebrated when we were under the colonial rule. Even the colonizers could not but not help us celebrate this event, because it happens on its own. People start walking. Even in the colonial times, people will start walking, and if you go to Kumbh, please see the exhibition of the archives that is being put up by both the UP government, the Mela Adhikari and the Allahabad Museum, you will realize it is one of the fantastic exhibitions and it is documented. Why can I tell you all of this? Because somebody took the pains of writing it, of observing what was happening and then putting it down on paper so that people like me, 150 years from the time when it was first documented, can actually go back and see it in the form of an exhibition today. So what better power than literary tourism to get people into the Mahakam, to put up an exhibition and show the power of, so you know that the Mahakam also tells you one thing, that the divine intervention, he is the biggest designer. If anybody has, and I'm saying this across faith, because Kumbh is not about any faith, there are no priests there, there's just the water. And you take a dip in the water, you purify yourselves in the water. So it's agnostic of religion, it's a festival. It's not a religious festival, it's a spiritual gathering, it's a spiritual congregation, because as above, so below. You know? So what else do you need? And I think I would want to be a great brand ambassador of the Mahakumbh, because the Ministry of Tourism actually is doing a lot of facilitation. So I'm very happy to invite, if you have any queries, either dial 1920, which is the Kumbh helpline of the UP government, or dial 1363. Please try it. If you dial 1363, you will hear a very nice Kumbh signature tune today, which will take you to a call center, which will answer all your queries.
Right. I think we're running short on time, but before we wrap, we would like to take a couple of questions, if we have the time to do that.
We can have two questions here.
Yes. Can someone please provide?
Volunteers, please. माइक ऑन है, आप क्वेश्चन पूछिए प्लीज।
नमस्ते मैम, क्या कहूँ मैं कौन हूँ, आप कुछ तो बोलिए इसके बारे में।
वैसे तो आपको किताब पढ़नी चाहिए, मुझे पता नहीं यहाँ पर अवेलेबल है या नहीं है, बट ये मेरी एक कविता की किताब है जो 2023 में वर्ल्ड बुक फेयर में लॉन्च हुई थी। मैं काफ़ी सालों से लिख रही थी, बट क्योंकि पता नहीं था कि छापनी चाहिए या नहीं छापनी चाहिए, या लोग मुझे एज एन ऑफिसर मेरी कविता के बेसिस पे मुझे जज तो नहीं करने लगेंगे, तो इसलिए मैं काफ़ी टाइम तक उसको होल्ड करके रखी। बट फिर मैंने हिम्मत करके वो छापी, उसमें बहुत सारी कविताएं हैं। मैं चाहूँगी कि आप उसको पढ़ो, क्योंकि मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि जो कविताएं हैं उसमें एक दशक से मैं उनको लिख रही थी, एक दशक से भी पहले से मैं उनको लिख रही थी। मेरी जर्नी कुछ इस प्रकार की रही है कि मैं थोड़ी जिज्ञासु हूँ, तो खोजती रहती हूँ कि मैं कौन हूँ, मैं क्यों आई हूँ इस धरती पे, मुझे क्या करना है, और मैं जो ये कर रही हूँ क्या ये मेरी डेस्टिनी है या इससे मुझे कुछ और आगे करना है। करना केवल काम के क्षेत्र में नहीं है, करने से बनना भी है ना। वो एक बड़ा हैमलेशियन क्वेश्चन है ना, टू बी और नॉट टू बी। मेरा क्वेश्चन है कि मतलब नाउन नहीं वर्ब, है ना, प्यार नहीं लविंग होना, है ना, कुछ करना वर्ब वाले फॉर्म में। तो मैं उसकी खोज में हूँ अभी, मुझे पता नहीं है कि मैं अभी कौन हूँ, क्या हूँ। और जब मैं आप लोगों के बीच में आती हूँ तो मुझे, जब मैं इस तरह के डायलॉग्स करती हूँ तो मैं केवल आपसे बात नहीं कर रही होती हूँ, शायद कहीं ना कहीं मैं अपने आप से भी बात कर रही होती हूँ। जो बातें मेरी माँ ने या मेरे गुरुजनों ने मुझे कही है, वो मुझे या जो मैंने सीखी है अपने एक्सपीरियंस से, तो हर बंदे का एक्सपीरियंस अलग होता है। तो वो जो मेरा फ्रेम ऑफ रेफरेंस है, जब मैं आपके सामने रखती हूँ, आप उसको अंगीकार करते हैं, स्वीकार करते हैं, नहीं स्वीकार करते हैं, अपनी कोई अलग चीज़ मुझे बताते हैं, तो उससे जो मैं बनती जाती हूँ, जो मैं इस समय और जगह और लोगों से जो आदान प्रदान से जो मेरा होना होता है, उस तरह की कुछ कविताएं उस किताब में हैं। आप ज़रूर पढ़िएगा। वाणी पब्लिकेशन ने पब्लिश करी है, मुझे पता नहीं यहाँ NBT के पास होगी या नहीं होगी, बट Amazon पे है और वाणी पर भी आपको उपलब्ध होगी।
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, we can take one more questions. Yeah, please, the student, I guess. Yeah.
If one wanted to understand the Indian culture from scratch, if it's a foreigner or someone who is new to it, what would be first on the roadmap you will assign, whether it is the books to read or the places to visit?
Yeah, so there cannot be a binary to how you understand India. You know, you can understand India through your grandmother's stories. You can understand India by walking out of your house, or in fact staying inside your house and looking at how your people talk about your own country. But in a more holistic and a more generic manner. Please, there is no alternate to not reading. There is no alternate to not traveling, because traveling transforms your mind. See, when Martin Luther King spoke about India and travel, he said, you can go to any country as a tourist, but when you come to India, you come to India as a pilgrim. You know, so that is the beauty of my country. So you have to travel, because travel is not just to know. You think you want to know the country, but maybe in the travel, like Paulo Coelho's The Alchemist, you might end up knowing who you are better than you end up knowing your country. So it is both. Travel is a must, but maybe you can begin before you can travel. I don't know how young you are, whether your parents allow you to travel on your own. But travel is also mental travel at times. So books do that. If you can't physically travel, you can at least mentally travel through the other persons who've undertaken that travel and written about those travels. So there is no this or that. I think you should do both. But depends on what your circumstances are, depends on how much time you have, because time is so much at a premium. So if you can't travel, at least read.
Thank
The
you
best
so much,
we can
ma'am.
do is to read, because I think it's the cheapest hobby that you can have. And it is expensive, I would say, not to read. It will cost you a lot when you grow up.
Thank you so much, ma'am. We also need to travel to our next session. So मुझे यहाँ पर रोकना पड़ेगा आपको. I'm really very sorry. And thank you so
Thank
much.
you very
Thank you so much. मैं अखिलेश जोशी जी से अनुरोध
Thank you.
करूँगा कि वो हमारे आज के स्पीकर्स और मॉडरेटर नाम को सम्मानित करें एनबीटी की तरफ से. अखिलेंद्र जी. पिछला सेशन में अखिलेंद्र जी के साथ था, और इस सेशन में मुग्धा जी हमारे साथ में थी, सीनियर आईएएस ऑफिसर. तो इस सेशन को मॉडरेट कर रही थी स्वाति जी. अखिलेंद्र जी से अनुरोध है कि स्वाति जी को भी एनबीटी की ओर से पुस्तकें और शॉल जो इस बैग में है भेंट कर उनका अभिनंदन करें, स्वागत करें. थैंक यू सो मच मैम. थैंक यू. और अगला सेशन उनके साथ में है जिन्हें आप बचपन से, मतलब मेरे बचपन से, आप में से कितनों के बचपन से ये नहीं पता, उनको हम